A lot of times when I perform, I use cards in my work. You know, cards, fortune tellers used to use cards quite a bit, and but I don't want you to get mixed up with thinking that this might be some kind of card trick or something that a card shark may do. And I'd like to demonstrate the difference between a magic trick with cards and mind reading, okay? And your name was Tori, you said. Okay, Tori, there's 2 decks of cards. Put away either one for now, okay? You can give it to Angela to hold, as a matter of fact. You sure you want to hold that one? We'll use this one?
Yes.
That's fine with you? Okay, now, let me just show you. The cards are, oh, it's really a full deck of cards, okay? And I'm not gonna, the difference between a magician and a mind reader is a magician might spread the cards out and say, pick a card out like a typical magician would, whereas a mind reader usually says, think of a card. And that's what we're going to do with you today, okay? So I want you to see one. I don't want you to just imagine it, because I want you to set it in your mind. So let me just spread some cards out. Just look at them and think of one in your mind.
Okay.
Do you have one?
I do.
Okay. Was that fair?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, so obviously, since you're only thinking, and I should point out that outside of saying hello, we have not set up anything ahead of time.
No.
Okay. Think of your card just for a second. Okay, be right about here, and let me do this. There's a reason I'm doing what I'm doing. Okay, I made a change here. Take the cards in your own hand. Okay, now you've got one deck here. You've got the other deck we've been working with. I have nothing, so I can't do anything sneaky. Okay, so now you can name your card out loud. You can say what it is. Go ahead.
This is the 9 of diamonds.
9 of diamonds. Okay, I hold my hand out here. You're going to count. You're going to actually count or spell out 9 of diamonds. You're going to N-I-N-E using a card for each letter.
Okay.
It's just face down on my hand. Okay, N-I-N-E, 9, O-F of, and D-I-A-M-O-N-D-S. That's the S. Watch me. They're all different,
Yep.
and there's no trick cards. So obviously, the only way that could have happened is somehow I figured out what card you were thinking of and put it there. But Tori, what if I had told you that I knew ahead of time you were going to think of the 9 of diamonds? Now, I've not talked to you, right?
No.
And you saw a lot of cards.
Yeah.
You could. Did you even change your mind?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, I thought so. But you elected to go with the 9 of diamonds. Hand her the other deck. Now, this is the one you elected to put aside for the moment, have Angela hold. Take the cards out. I'm not going to even touch them. I'm going to hold my hand here. Again, you're going to do, this time do it face up so that everyone can see. There's no tricky stuff. Go on. N-I-N-E-O-F-D-I-A-M-O-N-D. Yes. Yes, applause here would be appropriate. But still, you may be thinking, well, it's cards, and somehow he did something sneaky along the way, and he really didn't know that you were going to think of the 9 of diamonds right off the top before we began. But you know, I have an envelope I put in my pocket. Early this morning, when I first woke up after I had my coffee, take it, open it up, take out what's inside, open that paper up. 9 of diamonds. So, you see, I really did know ahead of time. Thank you.
Well, you chose magic versus mind reading as the opening effect, and I know that's an effect that you approached before when we did Easy to Master Mental Miracles. Why did you choose this effect to open this series?
I always like something that's easy to do. This does a couple of things. First of all, it's easy. There's no slides to worry about, so there's no pressure right off the beginning. Secondly, it's a nice 3-part effect. We talked about this before. Actually, you know, the original method in the Jinx it was only two. The envelopes that weren't involved. It was just the 2 decks of cards, and I forget exactly where, but somebody suggested the cards as a finish, because we've talked about this before. You can't have even numbers. You have
Right.
to have 1, you have to have 3, you have to have 5. 2 and 4 don't work, and it seems incomplete for some reason. Don't ask me why.
The rule of 3.
Yes, exactly. And also this is nice because you know, people see cards and they say, oh, maybe the guy's a magician, and this is kind of a nice way of saying this is the difference between magic and mentalism. This is mentalism, that's magic, and it's just a nice opening effect, and I've used it a lot. That's why I've always chosen this as an opener effect, especially in the more close-up situation, like a living room show or something at a table like this. Okay. Now, I want to point out, I changed my method of thinking. Now you'll notice I have 2 different kinds of cards.
Right.
I have like this aviator deck, and then you know, bicycle. Actually, this is a league back deck. Mm-hmm. But to me, and again, this is personal feeling, and I can't explain why, you know, but sometimes you just get feelings about things that just seem right to you, and you go with them, as opposed to trying to be logical about it. When you're over logical, that's where you run into problems. That's when you come up with stupid ideas, you know, that sound so perfect in your head until you try to apply them. To me, this is what people have in their house. You know, you go in the kitchen and you pull out the junk drawer and you got any cards? Yeah, that's what I got. You know, to have a red deck and a blue deck exactly the same brand new
match,
one,
yeah.
Yeah, it looks too set up.
Well, it's a magician thing.
Yeah, it looks like that should come out of a close-up case, which is fine, but I just get the feeling this looks just more natural.
Okay.
So anyways, what we have here is, let me use the blue deck because it doesn't matter, they're both the same. And in this case, I don't bother keeping the jokers or the extra cards in the deck. I just take all that stuff out so we can go right into it with the cards. And in practical and mental effects, he used a short card, but I've always used like the corner short idea more than the short card. And what you have is you have 6 cards that spell out with different amounts of letters. The cards actually start with the Ace of Clubs, 6 of Hearts, Jack of Spades, 8 of Hearts, 9 of Diamonds, and Queen of Diamonds.
All right.
10 letters, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 letters. That's what it takes to spell out to these cards. So you put 9 cards, 3, 6, 9, on top of the stack, and then a short card, in my case a corner short, underneath the cards, so you can get right to that block of 6 cards.
Okay, so that bank is above the corner short.
But here's the corner short, 2 clubs, and this bank of 6 cards that can spell out 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 letters is above there, and then 9 more cards above those cards.
All right.
And as a double check, I always just say ACEOFCLUBS.
Okay.
And I know I'm set to go.
All right.
Okay, this deck is set up the same way,
All right.
and that's the setup.
With the corner short also identical.
Exactly,
Right,
yep.
okay.
And finally, for the predictions, I have 6 predictions that all go inside my pocket. Now these are sealed up, so I'm gonna have to sort of rip it a little bit. Whenever I seal envelopes that I'm going to later open myself or even someone else, I try not to lick the whole flap, but just more toward the middle to make it
you
easier
can
to
pop
pop
it
them
open,
open.
yeah.
And what I've elected to do, I like to use bigger paper in these for 2 reasons. I've just taken the name of the 6 cards and written them with a Sharpie pen, nice and big letters, and this is half an 8.5 by 11 sheet. The reason I decided to go with bigger envelopes and bigger sheets of paper inside, and again I just licked the middle so it's easier to pop open, is that when you have bigger sheets of paper folded in half twice, you see what happens with the envelopes. It bulges them, so you have a little bit of space.
Okay.
So you can get in there and get to
So
the
you can
one
get to
you
the
want.
proper envelope.
Yes, as opposed to if it was just, say, a card, these envelopes would be laying real flat together and it would be harder to feel what the envelopes are. I also, on the outside of each envelope, as I seal up each prediction, I put a little dot on the envelope on the top,
In case they get mixed up.
just so I'll know.
Yeah.
Let me just kind of spread these out so you can see them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Right, okay.
Right along the top edge, a little a little dot with a marking pen, so that even if I drop them, they get all mixed up after they're sealed up, I know which is which.
So the ace of clubs is in the envelope on
Yeah,
the face.
that's one.
Okay.
And that's the six of hearts is that one, and the next card, the jack
Back
of
to the
spades.
queen of diamonds.
Yep, exactly. Then finally, what I do is, rather than put all six in the same pocket, it would be kind of hard to fish. I put the first three, 1, 2, and 3, or ace of clubs, six of hearts, jack of spades in this pocket,
Okay.
and with the dots facing me, and the other 3 in this pocket.
All right. So, you
So
only-
the most I ever have to do is go to the middle of the cards.
Right. So it's either the front one, the back one, or
Or the middle.
The middle one. All right.
And when I take them out, the reason I put the dot toward me is when I take it out, as I start removing it, I can just glance down. And if I've
sure you
gotten
have
the
the right
wrong
one.
one, I can like stop and go, oh, by the way, before I go on, and just put it back in and
Then
keep
reach it,
on
yeah.
going, yes. So I'll run through the routine now that we're all set. I just come out and I explain that I want to demonstrate the difference between magic and mind reading, and here are 2 decks of cards. And
Okay.
would you just put either deck away and we'll use the other one?
All right.
And
So-
see, I kind of try to subtly do that so they'll know I'm not using double talk here. I really will use the one that they
Right.
leave, okay?
Okay.
And then, now because the only setup, and even that you can't see, is those 6 cards. I mean, the decks are totally shuffled, so you can, if you wanted to, spread them like this and show they're all mixed up. And I like to do a jog shuffle here. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, because it's been a while since I actually read this in the book, but I think he says don't shuffle, but I'm okay with it because I just want the audience to think this is so random, so I'm just doing a jog shuffle
Okay.
where I'm not disturbing the upper half of the deck.
Right. And just for clarity, so the you
I pull
undercut the bottom half, you run one card but in jog it.
Yep. And this
Then you
is
shuffle off.
exaggerated and shuffle off like this. Oop. And then
And you
just
push up on the in jog.
get a
right?
break.
Yep.
And shuffle off to the break. And of course, all that's happened, besides me being sloppy, is that
As long as you don't run all the cards, because that would reverse the order. You just keep
Right.
that top bank.
yeah, you just when you get to the break, then you just sometimes in some of the older books they say just toss it like
Right.
that. But it looks nicer if you just after doing the first part of the shuffle, just run to the break, and there you go.
Okay.
As long as we're talking about card technique, you could also, if you wanted to do this, you run the jog shuffle and then turn it like this and just give it a cut.
Sure.
And that looks good too.
right.
Anyway, so now we're still back to where we were. Now, this, even though we were working close up, and a lot of the effects we did close up work equally well, or sometimes even better on stage. If I were on stage, I'd have somebody standing to my left here. And the impression I want to give is I'm casually going to show you a bunch of cards, you're going to think of one. Because the plot here is unlike magic where I say pick a card and put it back, that's a magic trick. A mental effect would be just think of a card.
All right.
But I want you to see one, so I'm not just going to say just think of one, I'm going to show you some cards. And what I do is I just go to the break, and then I've always done this, even though there are different ways to explain. This is one of the ways, but other ways are explained in the book. But I get to the break, and I just take them like this, and I fan those 6 cards. So that is a situation. I'm just fanning 6 cards. You're on my left, and I take them like this, and I say, think of one of these cards. Now here is the big psychological throw-off. I look away.
Yeah.
So I say, think of a card. I look in this way, and that just looks fair. Like, well, how could he know what he's thinking of? The audience are seeing basically a fan of cards in front of your eyes. They have no idea it's just 6. It could be half the deck.
Right.
for all
From
they're
the
seeing.
from the front, it looks like they have a choice of
Yeah, a whole bunch
the
of
top
cards
quarter
here.
of the deck.
But I'm holding like this, and you see 6, but still, you see 6, but still, that seems like a wide selection.
Sure.
And of course, you're under the gun because you're the guy up here helping me, so you're, less likely. But I mean, there's no reason not to think that that's not a good enough choice. So think of a card.
Yep.
And as soon as you got one,
I do.
okay. Now, was that fair? And then here again, I turn around and I immediately go into a jog shuffle as I'm talking. And so the whole procedure just looks so innocent. I mixed cards up, I fanned some for you, I didn't see anything, and I shuffled again. So now it's like, okay, think of the card.
All right.
And again, I don't say I'm going to read your mind. I just say, think of your card. Implies it. That's all I ever do. And then I go looking through, and what I do is I just take a card from anywhere, and I say, okay, let me put it about here. And all I do is move a card from somewhere here to somewhere else, just as long as I'm below.
Below the bank.
Right.
All right.
And then at that point, I close them up and give them back to you and say, okay, And I use this situation here to recap the innocence of it while explaining what's going to happen. I say, look, at one deck you've had in your pocket, haven't even touched, not even been out of the box. The other deck you have in your hands now, I can't do anything anymore.
Right.
What was your card?
Jack of spades.
So, see, I've done two things. I've given you a reason why it's okay to name your card out loud. And secondly, I've reinforced how fair this whole procedure is at the same time. I say, okay, look, I'm going to hold my hand here like this, and I try to make this real clear. I'm going to hold my hand like this. I want you to deal cards one at a time into my hand. We're going to spell out one card per letter, the Jack of spades, is face down into my hand. We're going to spell out Jack of spades. Now, the first time I do this, I say face down.
Okay.
Because what's going to happen when we get to the second deck, if they were both face up, you would see the same
cards.
After the ace of clubs. Right. You would see the ace of clubs and the six of hearts shows up before the Jack of spades.
Right.
So I don't want that. So I say, okay, just face down in my hand, J, and I spell it out loud, A, C, K, O, F, S, P, A, D, E, S. And I let them deal it, and I say, look it. And that's a great first climax.
Yep.
And then immediately what I do is I say, and you know, their cards are all there. Now you see what I've done? I've just spread a bunch here, and I can take these, and I can spread these.
Right.
And
you're not spreading the rest of the bank. Or,
yeah, and so that's totally fair. Okay, so Jack of spades. I say, but obviously what I've had to do there is to pick up your thoughts and then rearrange the card to put it at the right place so it would spell out. But what if I told you I knew what card you were going to think of before you even began?
Right.
You say, well, you know, that's
It's
crazy.
possible, yeah.
Take the other deck out. We're going to do the same thing. You're going to spell out the card. I'll tell you what, this time do it face up.
Okay.
Now see, so this looks even more fair.
Okay.
So we got J, A, C, K, O, F, S, P, A, D, E, S. And that just looks great, you know, because, you know, and of course there's no worry that they're going to have seen the same ace of clubs, six of hearts, because you didn't show them the first time. And of course then you can just take the rest of the cards and just say you could have stopped anywhere.
Right.
Okay, and that usually gets a real good reaction. Now, of course, by this time, I know exactly what envelope I need to get, because while this is going on, it's an easy thing in my mind to say it's the third envelope. It's the furthest one out in this pocket. So I'm all set to go, you know, and then finally I say to you, but you know, you still may be thinking somehow with cards I've somehow was able to manipulate something, even though that would have been impossible. They were in your pockets.
Right.
But just to prove to you that's not the case, I wrote something in this envelope. Now you see, I realize that there are a lot of like trick wallets and stuff, and there's nothing wrong with, you know, multiple out wallets. You could have put a wallet out there ahead of time.
And have the 6 cards
be
be
in different
accessible.
places, and then you could open it and say, take it, it's only one card and all that kind of, and that's
Right.
fine. You know, there are some great wallets and no problem with that. But I just find that this, you know, before I began, oh, sorry, gotta wet my fingers,
Yep.
sorry whoever is objectable, but I say before I begin, I had this in my pocket. You know, that just seems so casual.
Yes.
No one ever questions, well, you got any more in your pocket? Just, how could I grab it out?
From the spectator's point of view, too, they don't know there was a bank of 6 cards, so they think that the only way you could have done this is to have 52 envelopes, and they know you couldn't possibly
Just
have
reach in and-
indexed
yeah.
52 envelopes and be able to pull one out that quickly. So the entire idea of multiple envelopes seems to be a non-starter.
Right, especially at that speed. You
Right,
know, if
of
I-
course. You just reach in
took a
and
while,
pull
but-
out the, yeah, exactly.
That's what does it. It's just the quickness. Here you go.
Yeah.
And of course, then I ask you to open it, and even though it's sealed, you know, you can do it without too much trouble, but
Right.
it's obviously sealed. Take out what's inside. Again, that kind of proves without it showing it. There's only one paper inside, and what does this say? Jack of
Jack
spades.
of spades.
And it's like, that's it. It's perfect.
Yep.
And as I said in the beginning, no worry, nothing to, just before you go on and start your show, oh my goodness, I got to do this move and this move. There's no moves, you just do it.
It's a great opening trick.
It is, and it's by Anneman. Diego, why don't I have you shuffle these cards up? Just want you to know that, you know, they're not in any kind of order. But actually, you're not going to be the one who's going to be using the cards. You're going to be the ones using the cards. But you're going to do something different, okay? So I guess what I'm going to need here is for you to say stop. as I do like this here. Okay, let me give him another shuffle here, just so you won't think I know where anything is. Okay, fair? And just say stop.
Stop.
Right there? Are you sure? Okay. Is that fair? Because if you don't want that card, you can take a different one.
No, that's fine.
You sure? Okay. Take a look at the card, insert it in your mind, picture of it, put it back in the deck.
In it or on it?
In it. And what I'd like you to do is just put your card down again on this paper and fold it up a couple different ways. And rather than use a card, because we use cards so much, I would like you to just draw a picture in the middle there, and just a simple picture, design, shape, or something like that. And fold yours in half a couple times once you get it done. Yeah, simple shape, circle, triangle, something like that. Nothing too complicated. And again, when you're done, just fold it in half a couple of times. Done? Okay. Now, which is like trash, okay? Actually, I was going to say you don't need to fold it quite that much. What I want you to do is just tear it up.
That is?
Yeah. So just tear it up like this, okay? And just, that's the trash, okay? Now, can you picture in your mind, I want you to picture what your design is. I need you to picture what your card is. This is interesting because you could have each picked any card, thought of anything. I'm going to go with this. I'm going to go with this right here. What was your card?
4 of diamonds.
What was your design?
Diamonds.
Diamonds, and your card was the 4 of diamonds. And look what I had drawn for you. A diamond with the 4 of diamonds on the inside.
Well, this next effect, Notaria, was actually a joint effort between Dr. Daly and Anneman and Al Baker. So let's talk about this.
Yeah, this is the kind of effect Practical Mental Effects is filled with, where you're using 2 different methods to achieve information. And it's very simple. You have a stack deck again, breakthrough card system, and again, take a card out.
Okay.
I'll just do it this way. You can obviously have it. Is it a picture card or is it a number card?
It is a number card.
Okay, good. Remember the number. You're not
Yes.
going to forget it, and just
No.
put it back somewhere in the middle, and that's that. And put the cards away, and put your card down on this piece of paper.
Okay.
And then when you're done, close up the paper, fold it once each way. And then while you're doing that, I turn to somebody else and I say, I need you to draw a simple design on here. It can be a simple shape, but nothing elaborate. You don't need to draw a house with a chimney or anything like that, but just some kind of simple shape or design. And then when you're done with it, just fold it in half once each way.
Okay.
And then what I do, now you go back to being the first person who picked a card and
All
write
right.
it down. And I take this one and I say, okay, now I want you, here, take your paper and just tear it in half like this. Just tear it in half a couple times.
Okay.
And then take all the pieces, and what I did is say, stick them inside that can.
Okay.
Okay?
So
And
those are now
out of play. They can be burned.
Inaccessible now.
Yeah,
Okay.
if you're in a situation you can burn them in an ashtray, that would be, okay, now I want you both to concentrate on what you did. Now, of course, I knew the first card because the deck is stacked, that's
Right.
the 10 of spades.
Correct.
And I stole the center away from the second person's drawing, so I could open that behind the slate and see what it is, which is basically you drew a square with a diamond or a triangle in the middle,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
And then what I would do is I would draw that on the slate and then draw the 10 of spades inside, and then I would say, what was your card, the 10 of spades, what did you draw? A square with a triangle in the middle. This is what I drew. Very effective.
right. Yeah.
And you see how the misdirection is perfect because you're showing the person with the card how to rip their paper, and you have the perfect excuse to rip your paper.
Right.
And by giving him your pieces and saying, burn them or put them in the soda, the pop can or whatever, you've got all the misdirection you need to pop it open behind here and do your work. Very effective, very simple, and very effective, like typical Anneman. Anybody want chocolate? No, I'm kidding. I want to try something with you and with the entire audience. This is crazy. And I will be honest, I have never done this before. This will be the first time I'm ever doing it. And the chance of it working correctly are slim. But still, we're going to try it. We have some different colored papers here. Angela, I'm going to hand you these papers. And let's, 7, 8, I think there's 9, so I'll give you 9 pencils. You kind of spread them out. You know what? Why don't you leave a couple here? And take the rest and bring them out to the audience. Just disperse them to people. She took all the pencils, so here, I'll give you a pencil. Take your paper and just hold it like this. And across the front, why don't you put a 4-digit number, okay? Now, before you write it down, please don't like repeat the digits. In other words, don't write like 1111 or even like 1127, but try to make all 4 digits in your number different, okay? So, you know, like 2379 or something like that. So write your numbers pretty big across the center of your paper. Don't let anyone else see. And while you're all doing that, before we even touch these papers, I'm going to write something on one of these 2 slates. I have 2 slates over here that are completely blank. Okay, and I'm going to write something on this one. Is that okay? Or doesn't matter. And I don't want you to see what it is. I'm just going to write it right now. I'm going to go with this. And here, I'm going to set this down right here where no one can do anything sneaky with it, okay? And when you're done writing your number, fold your paper in half a couple times. One more time if you want, it's okay. Just to make it nice and small, we'll just stick it through this little slot in the top of the box. That's what that is for, okay? Here, a couple times, I guess, is good enough. So, and here, would you, let me just do it like this. Would you just take the box and bring it out to the audience, let them stick their papers inside? We'll get rid of these pencils. And you didn't write one, did you?
I did.
Oh, you did? Okay, well.
She didn't.
Okay. Let me just put the pencils aside. All right, we'll shake them up in here. Okay, shake them up. Now, what color you didn't write one, so take any one out you want. Okay. What colors did you write? Don't open it yet.
Yellow.
Hand her the blue one since she wrote a yellow. And what color did you write?
Blue.
Okay, take an orange one. And then, because I don't want you to take your own, okay? And then you didn't write one at all. So you take a yellow one. Okay? Now, each of you open up your papers, and you each have a 3 or 4-digit number, okay? Is that the one, well, you didn't write? No. Okay. All right. I'll use this slate here. Write or call out loud one of the digits in your paper, from your paper.
6.
6? Okay, here's 6. You call out one from yours.
3.
3. 6, 3. And you call out one from yours. 8. So we formed the number 638, okay? Now call out a different digit.
3.
3.
2.
2.
5.
5. Okay, 638, 325. A different digit.
2.
2.
6.
6.
4.
4. And finally, you have one left that you haven't called out yet, right? What is it? 8?
Yeah.
Okay, 8.
4.
4.
1.
1. Okay. Now, remember, first of all, you guys wrote the numbers in the first place. Mixed them up, and you chose the slip yourself. Then you call out the numbers in any order. I'm going to make an addition problem here, okay? So 8 and 3 is 15, and 4, 15 and, wait, 8 and 3 is 13, and 4 is 17, and 1 is 18, correct? Did I get that right? 13 and 4, 17, and 1 is 18. Carry the 1. 1 and 3 is 4, 5, 6. 6 and 6 is 12, and 4, 16. Carry the 1. 1 and 6 is 7, and 3 is 10. 12, 20. So the number, after all this formed, was the number 2068. Everything fair? You're not going to believe this. Look at this.
Otis Manning, who was a creator, contributed to the Jinx, and eventually his piece ended up in Practical Mental Effects, had a bunch of, through trial and error, he tried to find a way to perfectly switch billets, and he finally came up with this, I guess, which is the OM billet switching box. So let's talk about that, because that was that had a pretty good impact when we were performing it.
And this is going to require a number of different explanations. First of all, the box, how to make it,
Sure.
what its original use for, and then I kind of switched the use around for what we did yesterday.
Okay.
But the box basically, which is either a switching or a forcing box, either one, you can consider it that, because that's basically what's going to happen. Looks like simply a chocolate box with a slot cut in, so you put things in and then you take the lid off, and there they are, and somebody chooses one. But those ones on the bottom of the box are not the ones they put in here, because it has another box underneath that slot.
Okay.
Now, when I was making this, I had cut out all kinds of cardboard and everything to try to design something that would work really well for the box. But the problem, in the book, it doesn't show a way to get the billets out of here once they're dropped in. In other words, it shows a
Right.
cardboard square glued to the top. So after you use it
So
one
you have
time,
to almost destroy the box to
get
Yeah.
the billets out.
Sure.
And so I decided I need to discover a way to be able to get the billets out easier. And when I'm walking around the house and trying to figure out how I'm going to do this, I realized that if I had a smaller box that would fit perfectly, then we'd be all set. And then I spent an hour walking around trying to figure out what box I could use, and it was Lisa who walked out and said, "What about this one? We just bought this. These are lens cleaners for computer screens." And see, all I had to do was I cut the slit out in the box, I cut a square out in this box, glued it to the top, and this one has, you can just open it like that.
Okay.
And so now you can get out easily what's ever inside. And if I hold this up like this, perhaps the camera can actually look through that opening and see just how the square is and how it works. And as you can see from your angle here, Jim,
Sure.
that leaves plenty of space to glue this thing on so it will never come out. And then all you got to do is just close up the two flaps and close this up. And you're all set to go for the next time. Now, even Anneman discusses the fact that, boy, this is kind of a lot of work just to force like one item.
Okay.
Like to have the audience write down a whole bunch of stuff on slips of paper and drop them in there, and now somebody takes one thing.
Right.
So why all that work? So then he came up with the idea of using different colored papers.
Okay.
And the first idea was this. If you had distributed papers to the audience, like 4 or 5 different colors, and they each write a question down, and then you pass this out and have the questions collected, and then somebody chooses a pink one, a blue one, a green one, and they take it out and you answer the question, because they're fake questions. They're fake questions. The real questions are gone.
Okay.
And then you can answer the questions. Now, a possibility is you could take the top off and the person could carry the top away and retrieve the real questions here and then bring back a crystal ball or something with the real questions, and you can answer those as well as some of the fake questions.
Okay.
I had an idea I'd like to run by the audience watching this. What you could do is you could use red hot questions. I thought you could pass out papers to the audience for this segment and say, a lot of people have questions on their mind, but they're afraid to ask them because, they're very personal questions. But in this case, we're not going to use your name or tell anyone who you are. So don't be afraid to write down any question you want. Just don't put your name on it, your initials. Just write your question down and fold them up, and you pass out the different colors. And now you collect them, and now you can work as hot as you want. You can have red hot questions, you know,
Okay.
that you can, you know, because none of them are real.
That's right, yep.
Although, if you have some questions like, you know, I'm thinking about quitting my job, should I do it, you know? Then you can answer that question. Well, you know, I know that there are a lot of things to consider. Chances are you're going to find somebody in that situation. So, you know, you could do that. So I'm just explaining different possibilities. And of course, when you open the box, all you have to do is you just take it like this and do that. And it's just,
Right.
no one ever, you know, would suspect that. But for our purposes, finally, getting down to our demonstration yesterday, I wanted to come up with a way to use this box that really took advantage of its qualities.
Okay.
So then I remembered an old effect that a lot of newer effects have been based on with Jack London's Almost Real Prediction.
All right.
And what that is a matrix prediction, where if you have three people with like a 4-digit number, and you say to this person, call out a number, call out a number, call out a number, and you get a 3-digit number, and you do it again, you do it 4 times, what you wind up with is, with 3 people, the third person, this column will be all that person's number,
Right.
this will be all that person's number, and this will be all the first person's number.
Right.
And so regardless of the order they call them out in, it doesn't matter because the total is still going to be the same on the bottom. And if
Right.
you know these 3 numbers ahead of time, the totals of the numbers, you can make the prediction as to
So the
what they're all
total,
gonna-
the total is the total of number 3s plus the total of number 2 plus the total of number 1 is,
Right.
okay.
So let me show you how I designed this effect, because I think, you know, you could use this effect as a standard part of the show. It would be great. I took 3 sets of papers I actually had for this audience. I had 3 of each color, but we used one yesterday, but I can explain just using 2 of each color. On the yellow, and I went light, medium, dark. That's how I remembered it, so as not to confuse myself. Light, medium, and dark. On the yellow page, there's 1594. The orange is 7314, and the blue was 4329. And you notice I used different handwritings too?
Yes.
Okay, so the yellow pages add up to 6, 15, 19. Okay? 1 and 5 is 6, 6 and 9 is 15, and 4 is 19.
Correct.
All the orange papers add up to 10, 11, I'm sorry. What was that?
15.
15, okay. And finally, the blue was 7, 9, 18. Now, the numbers are different. Like on another blue, it's 7326,
Okay.
but 7326 still adds up to 18. And I had another blue one that had different numbers, but they still added up to 18. You see?
Yes.
Same with the orange, same with the yellow. Just in case somebody somehow opened 2 yellow papers up, there would be 2 different numbers. You could even say to the person, are you happy with that number? If not, throw it away, take another one.
And from their perspective, they would see that they're all different numbers. There's no way they would notice that the 4 digits add up to the same number. Nobody would ever do that.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, besides, no one knows where you're going at this point,
Exactly,
so why would
so-
they even think that way?
Right, of course.
And to make the prediction, this is how you do it. It's very simple. We got 19, 15, and 18. You just arrange them like this. The last one, 19, 15, 18. The last one is 18. For the 15 one, you just move it over on a slot like this.
Oh, okay.
And for the 19, you move it over like this. Okay? That's how you compute what your prediction is going to be.
Oh, all
The
right.
first one, you move it, technically you're putting a 0 and then you're putting 2 zeros is what you're doing. You're just placing them single spot, 10 spot, 100 spot. That's all you're doing. Then you add them up. So that's 8, 1 and 5 is 6, 1 and 9 is 10, and you get 2068. That was my prediction yesterday.
All right.
So all you got to do is remember 2068. You can even write it in the corner edge of the slate. And so that's it. So now here's what happens. They all appear to write different numbers on their papers.
All right.
And then they fold them. You tell them fold them 2 or 3 times, just like these are folded. And you pass the box out. For the first couple, I actually took them so that it would explain any noise. And they stick them through the slot. But after you have 2 or 3, noise is now explained because there's papers in there already. And I passed them out, and everybody was dropping their papers in. And of course, they're all going to the little box on top. And all these papers were in the bottom already. I get back, I take off the cover and say, okay, we got all these papers. You take one, you take a yellow one, you take an orange one, you take a blue one. So now we got 3 people who have a paper.
And you were careful to have people pick a different color than what they had originally.
Exactly. I mean, technically, even if they had picked one that of the same color, there were other ones of that color that other people had filled out. But rather than even deal with that,
right.
What color did you use before? Yellow. Well, then you pick a blue one.
Right.
And again, this is so beautiful because they're going to call out single-digit numbers. So who can keep track of that? Who can say whether or not this was one that was actually written by someone else or not? Especially because I said to him, don't duplicate numbers. Don't write like 1127.
Right.
Make sure all the numbers are different. Well, that really limits everybody. And now with all these numbers with different digits and overlap, there's no way. I mean, it would just be totally absurd for anyone to retrace this who didn't know the principle.
And the fact that now they're going to start calling out these numbers in any order, the idea that you could possibly have any control over this is ridiculous.
Exactly. So rather than, we'll just go in order here to explain this, but for instance, I say to the first person, name one of your numbers. They say 1, second person says 7, and the third person says 4. Okay, I'm just going to go straight across.
Yes.
So we can keep track.
So it's
okay.
5.
Next one is 5, then
3,
3,
and 3,
and 3, then
9, 1,
1,
2,
2,
and then 4, 4, and 9.
Okay. Now, as you can see, there's a million possibilities that they could call out. And they've got 4-digit numbers creating 3-digit numbers. It just so overlaps beautifully.
Right.
Okay, so then you add them all up. But remember, this is all the blues numbers, this is all the oranges numbers, this is all the yellow numbers. So it can only come out. 4 and 3 is 7, 9, 18. Just like we said before, carry the 1. That's 10, 11, 12, 16, carry the 1. That's 2, 9, 16, and 4 is 19. Or I did that wrong. Carry the 1, 2068.
2068.
The prediction. It could only be that.
Yeah.
And it seems to be impossible from that point of view. There's just too many variables. How could you possibly know what numbers they would write? How could you know what numbers they would pick? How could you know what numbers they were going to call out? And to have it, especially, and now let me talk about this, slates. Slates, it's so anti-technological. There can't be electronics in here. I mean, even when you like erase them like this, it's so real, slate and chalk. You can see it, it's visible, it doesn't reflect. You never have to worry about lights. You can see it twice as good as white on black or
right.
Black writing on white paper, but it's real.
Yep.
There's no way, if I write something on this, there's no way that can be some kind of sneaky stuff that changes. It's slate on the chalk.
Right.
And to me, that's the biggest enemy of mentalism now, is technology. The further you can distance yourself from technology, the stronger your mentalism will be. Because I'll tell you the mindset of the average human being. Look at what's going on here in the world. It's just so incredible. Every time Apple releases a new version of iPhone or iPad, it does more and more stuff. It's just so totally remarkable. I can't even imagine what's going to happen next. It's crazy. It's out of control. It's crazy, except for one place. What goes on in here is mine, and nobody can get in there. All the machines, all the gizmos, all the cards, the computer chips and what have you, can't get there.
Yeah, not even Siri knows.
Yeah, nothing except for this guy.
Yeah.
With chalk and pencils.
Yeah.
You see?
It's so low tech.
And that's why it becomes so strong.
Unless we call it the iSlate. It's just
Taylor, thanks for joining us. Would you come on up here for a second? Give Taylor a round of applause. Taylor. Now, Taylor, try a test with you. I haven't talked to you ahead of time, not set up anything. Let's get rid of those jokers there and this deck of cards. Just want to show you them. You're welcome to look through them. I want you to pick a good one, but I don't want you to pick a picture card. picture card. You're going to draw a card in a second. Picture cards are hard to draw because, you know. So if you get a picture card, we're going to just put it back and just do it again, okay? So take a card, any one, and yeah, is it a picture card? So you're happy with that card then? Okay, so just put the card somewhere back in the deck, and we'll put the deck away so that, because we'll get the cards out of play, so that's nothing to do with it, just thought. That's what's important. Okay? And you want to hold them, Diego? Okay, so here's a slate and a chalk for you. And I'll take a slate and a piece of chalk for me. And why don't you put your back against mine and face that way, and I'll face this way so I can't see you, can't see me. Okay? Have you done it?
Yeah.
Okay. Draw your card. Draw a picture of your card. Don't write like what it is, but actually try to draw a picture of your card on your slate. Go ahead. And you're probably wondering, do I draw the square to begin with? Yeah, go ahead. So actually draw the card, and then I was trying to pick up from you what you're getting over here. Okay. Yeah, you should put in the detail in the corners so that you're wondering about that. Go ahead. Yeah, I'm pretty much done. Are you done? Just about? Okay, I'm not looking at you. I was trying to follow her as she went along, but I can't see anything, of course. Tell me when you're ready.
I'm done.
Okay, turn this way. Turn yours around. I want to see kind of what you did. That's really good. Okay. Yeah, that's excellent. Thank you so much, Taylor. Give Taylor a great big round of applause. Look at, I just want to show you, because in a real card, the 2 would be upside down. And I started doing that because I'm used to looking at cards, but I changed my mind at the last minute. I said, "Oh, make it right side up." And look at, can you see the, except for where the placement of the, like she put hers next to the letters and I put mine underneath, but that was a great job. Thank you.
Now, this effect is a perfect example of how just adding something theatrical like slates can take what is basically a pretty pedestrian card location trick,
Yep.
and turn it into something much bigger that would play on the largest stage.
And doesn't look anything like a card.
No.
Let's just run through it. The deck is stacked. Doesn't matter. This is my breakthrough card system. And you want them to simply take a card that's not a picture card. So I usually say, I'm going to ask you to reach over and take a card out. Just don't take a picture card or an ace. If you take one of those two,
Okay.
don't use it.
All right.
And I just stop. And did you get a picture card or an ace?
No, I have a number card.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
And put it inside the deck somewhere. And at this point, you make it like obvious. There's no way you want to use the deck. This is not a card trick. And here's where I usually put it back in the case. And as I close the case, I can get a pretty good shot of the bottom card. And so that tells me your card is the 5 of diamonds.
That's correct.
Okay, so sometimes I even have the person put it back in the case, and as I turn it toward me to shut
Close
the
the
flap, it's this motion right
Sure.
here. And as I turn, see, I'm holding it open like this. I want to show this move because it's so good. You put the cards in, I'm holding it like this, and then it's like these 2 fingers would naturally go like this to close the flap, and I'm staring right at the bottom card, and I come around and just slide the case in, and it's done. So now I know you have the 5 of diamonds, and it's like this. Take this slate, go to the other side of the room. You don't have to, of course,
yeah.
and I'll stay here. And okay, I'd like you to draw a picture of your card on this slate. And now I have to wait for you to start. You can't make that mistake where I can start drawing, because that tells everybody he already knows what the card is. I'm supposed to be picking up the thoughts from you, so I got to stand here for a second. Oh, okay. And so I begin by drawing this and stop and take a minute, and then now I always draw the numbers right side up, because very few people would draw it upside down like they really are. And then I say keep on drawing. I'll tell you what, I'm almost done. I think I'm going to go with this here. Are you almost done too?
Almost, yes.
Yeah, I think I'm following with your thoughts right along with you.
Let me just make a correction here.
Okay. I'm pretty sure that's what I'm going to go with. And keep mine face down. Now, I never show mine
Okay.
first, of course. I wait until he's done. Okay?
Yes.
Could you turn yours over? Let's see what you drew. And look at what I drew. Now, you see that how close that is? And again, like I said, most people, I put the 5 with the diamonds above instead of below. I don't know what made me do that. But, I mean, they look so similar. It's startling. You know, it's almost like a design duplication,
You're right.
even though we're each just drawing a card.
And it's also, I noticed you did this yesterday, that you can actually point out the things that are similar. You say, well, I wrote the 5 right side up instead of upside down, as
Right.
they are on actual cards, and all these things that could not have possibly have come from just, even if you knew what the card was, you wouldn't really know how
they were
I was going to draw it.
Right. Yeah, in this case, you might even predict, even look at the size, how big, you drew it exactly as big as I drew it, you know? Things like that. Any little thing you can use to
Point out the similarities.
yeah. I mean, if you really wanted to get a profound, look at, you see how when you drew the 5, you actually, like this line didn't hit it a little bit below the, and take a look at mine. I did the exact same thing, you
Yeah.
see? But it's stupid thing, anything that resembles it, you know?
Sure.
Like, you know, look at this one over here isn't really a diamond, it's sort of like round, and it's almost like a trapezoid, but take a look at mine.
Right.
Isn't it almost exactly the same?
Sure.
You see?
Yes.
That kind of thing. And before you know it, people are like, you must have seen it somehow. Because it's so perfect, you know?
And you're so far away from the cards at this point.
Yes.
The selection process and all of that is,
Doesn't seem to mean a thing anymore. Yeah, this is totally different. So, again, just add a little bit of presentation to it. And look how much you change it. Okay, I'd like to show you something that was very common back in the 1920s and 30s. And I think at this time I'll use you, Angela, okay? Look, I'm going to have some papers here. I'm going to take this one out. And what I'm going to ask you to do is to think of some kind of question on your mind about maybe your future or something like that. Something that you don't know the answer to yourself, okay? And you're going to just put the question down on the paper, you know, like, nothing like what's my grandmother's name or something like that, but some kind of future event maybe that, you know, that you would like an answer to, okay? And just like put it on the paper, print it on the paper, and then just when you're done, just kind of close it up like that, okay? And this is very heavy paper, you can't see through it. And while she does that, I'm going to turn away, I'm going to talk to you, okay? Because you're already starting to form theories in your mind as to how some of this stuff works, and then I have to disprove something
Maybe I did
every
too.
time. Yeah, maybe so. But anyways, I'm looking away so that you'll know that I can't possibly be seeing what she's writing over there, okay? And I think maybe I'll have you help me this time when we get to the next part. Are you done over there? Or? Okay.
Yeah. She's done. She's done.
Are you? Did you close it all up like that? And pass her the pen, and why don't you take it and put your initials on the outside and hold it up someplace where,
Here?
yeah, just on the outside, and hold it up, and I need the pen back, and I need you to think of your question for me right now. Now don't, even if you held that up to the light, you couldn't see through it, could you?
Don't open it. No, I can't.
Think of your question. Now, I'm going to write something on here that I have no idea what this even means. Okay. I'm going to add something. Crazy. I'm going to ask you to hold this. You don't have to initial it. Can I ask you, what do you do? What right now is going on in your life that, like, what are you a student?
Yeah, it's good.
What? Oh, man, will I win an AVA award in May? What is that? What is an AVA award?
It's an academic video award that the TV professor keeps in May for TV students.
Have I talked to you ahead of time?
No.
Did I, before we began this, did I say to you later I'm going to ask you to do this or do that and write something down? Nothing like that. You wrote this, you held it. I wrote something, you held it. You still got it. Would you open it up, set it down on the table, and read out loud what it says?
You will receive an award. What does it say? In May?
Yeah.
Oh,
You
that's
will
the-
receive an award. And I actually put C because I was no idea what I was even writing. But I put you will receive an award. I put actually AVC, but it's AVA. And then at the last minute, I got the thought just to finish that off by putting in May. Crazy stuff, isn't it?
Now, this next thing is called a question and the answer. And Anneman in Practical Mental Effects calls this a super effect.
And it is.
Okay.
And it's simple, but there are a lot of little things to talk about. So the pads, the pads that we sell for the Senate make perfect size, same size that Anneman recommends for doing billet work.
For billets, all right.
And we're going to talk today about a couple different methods, but this is the standard way, fold it in half and then twice the other way, and that's the billet. And no one will believe that you can see somehow anything written on that, so it's very good. It's also convenient because if you palm it with your middle finger like that, it's pretty much invisible. As Anneman says, if you hold your hand close to your body, no one could see it from any angle.
Right.
So that all works, but finally, in this effect, it's great because it fits right inside of Vernet thumb tip, with just enough left sticking out, so that, but no one sees that, of course, because you're going to keep the thumb pointed toward your audience member, so there's no way they're going to see that, and your hands are going to be moving. It's going to be covered anyways.
All right.
So there's the dummy in there, and what's going to happen is you're going to switch out the paper that the person writes on for the dummy so that you can later read this right in front of their eyes.
Okay.
And it seems bold and brazen. That's what scares a lot of people away. You have to try it, experiment, then you'll see that it really works well. So the person writes a question, and rather than writing a question, I'm just going to put a big Q. That
Okay.
designates the question. Okay, so what happens is this is in the pocket over on the right-hand side. These papers are in front of the pad, and that's in the left-hand pocket, and you have the pen out.
Okay.
You take these out, you take one blank piece of paper and put it down with the pen and tell the person to write a question. These go back in the pocket. As the person writes the question, you get the thumb tip on from your pocket. You're standing, of course, so it's, or if you're at the table, you're doing what I'm doing here, and you get the thumb tip on with the blank dummy sheet under the ball of your thumb, and you're waiting. So you've written a question.
Yep.
I've asked you to refold it, so would you refold it now? And then I hold my hand out like this, and what happens is this. I'm going to switch that billet for this one. Now, in the book, I don't like the way it shows it.
All right.
I'm criticizing the book here, but it shows it doing this.
Okay.
And you're supposed to, you see what happens? You can't even do it hardly.
Yeah.
Because, unless
He
your
wants you
thumb is
to lay the
sticky.
thumb tip on top of the billet and then remove
With your fingers underneath. That's the way the
the
book
dummy.
shows.
Right, so you're actually holding your...
And what happens is it's difficult to pull it out that way. Plus, it doesn't look natural.
Well, it's not the way, if somebody were to just take a billet out of their hand, if somebody said, all right, now pick that up with your right hand, they would just reach over and take it.
Right.
They wouldn't do this.
Right,
Right,
exactly.
okay,
So what I do is, like, let's say it's laying there. Well, I come over and put my whole hand inside, you see, and just do that. Well, so all I'm doing is, now the cup fingers hide that from the audience.
Right,
So they
okay.
can't see exactly what's going on.
Right.
But let me do it.
And it's done on an offhanded moment.
Yeah,
It's no attention call.
I take
to
it from you, and it's like, here you go. Just
Right.
like that.
Okay.
To the person, to a person on this side over here.
Okay.
So it's like, you put it here, okay, now here, you take this in the pen, and you're going to initial it. See, in this hand, which has now the billet and the thumb tip in it, grabs the pen, and so that's the perfect
So they're initialing the
misdirection.
dummy.
and
The
holding
hot
it
billet is in this hand with the thumb tip.
Exactly.
Okay.
And just to finish the description of the move, this time out in the open so you can see it, what happens is this finger simply pushes forward on the thumb tip, and then it lays it right on top of the billet. So you get this going on, just like that. And again, in motion, it's just like that. It's nice and smooth. It's the simplest thing in the world. And take the pen and you give it to a person on this side and say, put your initials on it. So now they've got the billet, and then you say, hold it above your head. Now this hand with all this junk here goes into the pocket, and you let go of the thumb tip, and all you do is, I use my fingers in my pocket just to kind of flatten it out like this.
Okay.
So now it's only folded halfway, and I come out with the papers and the envelope like in the first place, and then I just casually open it as I'm talking, because obviously if this were in my pocket, some of the papers might do this, and I just casually open it, and I'm talking, and I'm looking right down, and I see the question. So after I read the question, I know what it says, I just take a blank paper from underneath it, put it back, and write some kind of answer to the question.
Okay.
Yesterday, I believe it was, how many AVA awards will I win, or
Yes.
whatever. And then fold it up and give it to someone to hold. Now, here's the part, and I think this scares away a lot of guys who are newer or don't have the experience. You have to take the initialed paper, take it back, open it up, and pretend to read out loud what you just read on the other paper. And you have to just be a good actor. You just look at it and say, okay, it says, how many AVA awards will I win? Actually, if you recall, what I did is I opened it and I go, okay, good. Because I'm supposedly seeing this.
This is the first time, yeah, you've supposedly seen it.
Yeah, so I look at it and go, huh, okay, good. How many AV awards will I win? And I look at the person. I'm not afraid of this paper. So you get some, like they're afraid somebody's going to want to see it or something.
Right.
But you hold it right out there in the open, just blatantly look at it, pretend like you're
Well,
reading.
at this point, it should absolutely be the one with the question on it. So
Yeah,
there should
well,
not be any question in the minds of the audience members that,
That's it,
Yeah.
yeah. But it's one of those things. It's like having something palmed and sticking it right under somebody's nose and being afraid to do it. But you have to do that. So you just look at it and how many AVA awards will I win? Oh, okay, I don't even know what that is. But okay, open my paper, and I just casually do that and put it away. Now, you may say, what if somebody wants to see that paper later? No. Don't
Yeah.
even think that way. No, it never happens. Trust me, just don't even think about it. The only person who's going to ever ask to see that is if you get a room full of magicians who know a little bit, But a normal person, nope, never happens.
and the reason you can't let them see it is because it's not, the real one is not initialed.
Right, exactly.
So even if you were to, I'm sure somebody who thought they were being clever would say, well, you could just bring out the original one, but that one doesn't have the initials. So
Yeah, or you could put a thumb tip writer on, and you could put it's crazy.
Yeah.
Just don't worry about it,
Yeah.
and it's over.
yeah, what's important, and that's where I think Anneman's emphasis is, that the emphasis is on the answer, not the question.
Exactly, and this is where so many younger people go wrong. They try to make everything perfect and close every corner. You don't have to, because usually when you try to do that, you wind up diluting the effect.
And
from the script.
overcomplicating the method.
That's what's called boldness in mentalism. Boldness doesn't just mean you do something right under people's noses, but it means that you do something and then you walk away from it and not worry about people piecing little parts together that they never will anyways if your attitude is right.
It's great.
Okay, well, I'm going to try a test with this slate. Let me number it like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like that, okay? Now, I'd like to present this, and I don't want to drudge up any feelings, but do any of you have anyone, like a relative who's passed on, that you could think of for a second, that won't, maybe, a person who passed on a while ago and it won't, make you sad or what have you to think of it, but you can just think of the name for me? Do you have someone like that? Mm-hmm. Okay, what I'd like you to do is just put their first name after one of these numbers, but don't show me which one it is. Okay. So just put their name after any one of those 6 numbers. Aye. I'm not looking at him because I don't want anyone to think I'm trying to watch where on the slate he's writing or what the movement of his hand is. Are you done already with that? Okay, now keep it face down. I don't want to see anything, okay? And what I would like you to do is take the slate and you write a name of a living person after any number. Go ahead. Okay? Each time I'm looking away, I'm not trying to see a thing. Okay, when you've done that, hand it to Diego. And Diego, you write a living name after another one of those numbers. So I don't know where you wrote, what you wrote, okay? And then pass it over to Jameson here. And Jameson, you write a name after one of the remaining numbers. And when you're done, what does that leave? 2 numbers left?
Yeah.
So after this, or now 1 number left?
2 numbers left.
Okay, pass them back, and you guys fill in the last 2 numbers with living names. Okay? And again, Paulo, we have not spoke ahead of time. I've never even met you before today at all. So, and then you were in the back. Now you've come up here to the front. Okay, are we done over here? Okay. All right. So one of these is a person who's passed on, and one of them, or 5 of them, are people who have not. I just need you to concentrate on the person for me. What was the person's name?
Zachary,
And who was that?
my grandfather.
Zachary. Good job.
Thank you.
This was an effect that was contributed to one of Animan's smaller publications. It's a secret booklet from Bob Parrish, probably one of the great magic writers of the 20th century, but also a creator. And this is a very clever living and dead test.
Yes, and you know, this is such a fun thing to do, and this is all the props you need. You need a slate and you need a piece of chalk, and that's it.
Okay.
Let me go over this. You simply write down the left edge number. Let's say you're going to do 6 names, so you number it. 6 is good. It's just the right amount. You number it 1 through 6. Okay.
Right.
So far, no tricks, no gimmicks. You pick somebody out and you say, you know, I'd like you to think of somebody who passed on. And just for the record, I did a number of living and dead tests. It occurred to me, you know, everybody always says that's kind of morbid. Change it, you know, maybe do some other kind of test. I decided we're doing Animan. I'll do a living and dead test. You know, I just had people. Anyone want to think of someone who's passed on, you know, and you know, just somebody who wasn't, you know, somebody that an older aunt or uncle, you know, wouldn't mind talking about, you know, and just did it that way. Because the dilemma is always you're worried that somebody's going to name a name of somebody who just recently passed on and they're going to get all upset and that kind of thing. So again, it can be handled just with the right wording. So anyways, okay, do you have someone in mind,
Sure.
a name? So what, okay, this is what happens. I hand you the slate,
All right.
I turn my back and I just say write, you know, just write like in cursive, the first name of the person that you're thinking of after any one of the numbers. And I turn my back, and there's no cheating here. This is what's so great about this, because the whole test, it really relies on the simplest
Okay.
device. Okay, are you done?
Yes.
Okay, turn the slate over, face down.
Okay.
Okay, so now I don't know where you, and now this is what happens. I pick somebody else out, and I come over here with this hand, my middle finger, and I just come like this.
Right.
And I just drag it across the slate as I hand them the slate. It's as simple as that. So you see what happens is
That'll be the only one that has a
that
little.
has a little bit of a smudge mark over the face. And see, then the other people write down the name. Isn't that great?
And everything else will just be bold. It won't have
Yeah,
any,
exactly.
You know,
Like, you know, you
people
write
write
other
Bob and, you
yeah,
know,
if you want
whatever.
to just scratch
Yeah.
out names real quick.
Yeah.
And see if you, and do you notice how when I told you to put the name down, I said just write it in cursive after any one of the numbers. That slight in cursive was thrown in, you know, to kind of just, you know, get you to connect the letters to, but I mean, it doesn't really matter. You look at the list, and it's so obvious which one has that little bit of a smudge mark. And yeah, isn't that great? I mean, it's well, you know, I always say when you hear an effect that is so baffling, and then when you hear the explanation, if the explanation is so perfect and so simple that it makes you smile, it's a great effect.
Yeah.
And that's what this is. And the way you end it is you just say concentrate, and you just erase off all the other names. And then at the end, it's like, okay, who is the name of the person you're thinking of? And they say Doris, and you go like that.
Yep.
And see, the effect almost at that point is like, think of the name of someone who's passed on, I'll write it down. There it is. It's not really that way, but that's how it appears at the end.
Yep.
Just a great little effect, slate immortality. When I brought this out, somebody said, you know, are you going to look into the future? Who said that?
I did.
That was you, yeah. It does look like a little crystal ball, doesn't it? And yeah, I actually had planned to use this today in what we're about to do, but it won't work the way it was. See? You have a look on your face, Angela. You can look at it. I want it this way. It makes a unique sound. Like that. Like this. Here's a deck of cards. These are the extra cards and the jokers, okay? Look through them. Make sure they're okay. Are they? Cut the cards in your own hands. Yeah, complete the cut. Did you take some off the top and put them on the bottom?
I did.
Okay. Now, look at the top card. Is it like a number card?
Yes.
Okay, so that's good. I just didn't want any pictures or aces. Just put the cards in the box. Okay, so it's a number card.
Mm-hmm.
It's a number you can picture in your mind?
Yes.
Okay. This is cool, right? Okay. Remember, think of your number. What's your number 9?
Well, this effect was certainly a change of pace during the performance, a little spooky. Again, it's the creation of L. Vosburgh Lyons, and he calls it Taps.
And actually, this Animan had planned to use in his very last performance, but then, of course, he passed before that happened.
Other plans.
Yeah. But it's crazy. Yeah, it is unusual. And I had to sort of change it. And after I changed it, I had to augment it a little bit.
Okay.
But basically, the effect is, in the book, you put a ball bearing between two plates.
Okay.
And you put them together and hold them like this. And then, again, you had a fingertip or a thumb tip or something that you could hold underneath and tap.
Okay.
And back then, thumb tips and fingertips were made out of metal, flesh colored. So that sound was like the sound of a metal ball bearing.
Right.
And I plan to find an old metal, because I like that idea. I plan to find an old metal fingertip to actually use sometime in the future with this. But I couldn't, I tried painting a thimble, but it really didn't look right, it stuck
Okay.
out and everything else. So this is a Vernay fingertip, one of
Okay.
the smaller ones. It still works real good, but it's not quite metal on metal. You know, it's a nice sound,
Right.
but it doesn't quite have a metallic sound. So I had to go through the house finding what makes it sound like that. And I found that's almost the same.
Yes. Okay. So it's a piece of
It's Yeah, but
Plastic or glass?
yeah, somebody gave me this one time. So then I said, okay, so I'll put that in a plate, and I'll put the other one on. You have somebody pick a card, and it's a deck that's stacked, so you know how many taps you need to create to get to, like if you pick the 8 of spades, it would tap 8 times. It's as simple as that part. But the thing is, I thought, okay, with this, here we are, like that, and get that kind of
Yep.
effect, which is nice. But then when I started looking at this thing, I said, you know, that's okay, but now I felt like I wanted to do something with that.
Yeah, what is it? Yeah.
And then I remember I had some of these little clear balls. And I said, wouldn't it be cool if I appeared to take a clear ball, which looks like a little crystal ball, and flatten it?
Okay.
It's just, it makes no sense. That's the way my mind works. But see, the problem is if you put a clear ball in here, which I thought about doing in the first place, and he talks about a ball bearing, the problem is it does this.
Rolls around. Yeah.
No matter how hard you try to keep it steady,
Yeah.
the slightest movement, it rolls around. And then to have it click while it's rolling around didn't seem to work. So I said, okay, so I got this ball, but I really want this. So I said, okay, let me flatten it.
Okay.
And so that's how this whole thing, crazy thing. And you know, what I want to point out is that sometimes if you space out magic into a mentalism routine enough, it can be really jarring because it's so different all of a sudden.
Right.
Than what they've seen up until then. So basically, you know, I've got the thing palmed here, and I just, you know, very openly, you know, I'm talking about this, and this is the moves I decided to come up with, is I just show it here, and I just do this. Now watch, and then I do this, and flatten it out.
Okay.
And all I've done is to do the fake pass. The ball's here, I pretend to take it, hold it up, I've ditched the ball now in my other pocket,
Right.
when I've come around, and I pretend to drop it and squeeze it, and then just do this.
Okay.
It was very startling. I mean, they didn't see it coming, you know. They were looking at this ball, and it's like, okay, now watch.
Yeah.
And it was like, like that. Okay, so now I put it in there, and then I did the thing with the cards where they chose a card.
Right.
And while they were looking at that, that gave me plenty of time to get all set to do the next part, to steal the tip out.
Now, just for clarity, you had the deck stacked in what way?
I think I had that stacked in my breakthrough card system.
Okay,
Because
so-
I'm so familiar with
Okay,
it.
so,
And
so
I
any
said-
card stack,
Yeah, 8 kings, high Stebbins, breakthrough card, anyone you want, the Urison card stack or anything you know.
Okay.
And all you do is you spread them out and say pick a card, and you just say, look, if it's a picture card or an ace, that's no good. You know, I want a number card, so put it back if it's one of those. And I
Okay.
legitimately let them grab a card. If it is, they put it back, and it looks good. Take another one until you get a card that's appropriate.
number card, yep.
And as soon as they do, and they take back the deck, I look at the bottom card, and I know what the next card is. So let's say it's a 5 of spades. I got to get 5 taps. So that's when I stood up. I just put the two together like this, and I kind of stood up so I could tilt them forward a little bit.
Okay.
And then, you know, get that effect. Without trying to move, you know, your hands too much. Like that. I'm over
Right.
compensating now, but if you hold it fairly flat, just tilt it a little bit forward, so you can get a pretty good sound there
Right.
without really seeing anything. See, because you have to imagine they're sitting here, and that's where their heads are. So you can go pretty far underneath, as long as you don't do this, you know, and then you
Right.
give it away. But if you can control your little finger just to move independently, and then it doesn't look like anything else is moving.
Yeah, and
And-
it's pretty spooky.
Yeah, it's just, it's different. It's not what you normally see. So that's taps. Robert Parker was one of my favorite writers. Did you ever read any of his? This was a Jesse Stone novel. I guess maybe it's more of a guy thing than not. He was a detective or a police chief in Massachusetts, and he, unfortunately, Robert Parker died recently, and I felt so bad. But anyways, I have read most of his novels, and this one was a very good one, Stranger in Paradise. Would you take it and just flip through it just to verify it's an ordinary book, which it is, of course. And yeah, she's checking everything out. While she's doing, I have a deck of cards, another deck of cards. Let me just put the extra cards aside. And let me just show you this, let me just spread them out here. And you can see it's just a deck of cards, okay, all mixed up. I've shuffled them already, and they're all mixed up. And I guess this time we'll go back to this side of the table, if it's okay with you. What I'm going to do is I'm going to spread the cards out just like, do you want to cut them? Okay, so that way you won't think I know where any of the cards are. I'm just going to spread them across like this, okay? And what I want you to do is just slide 4 cards together toward you. Oh, just take 4 of them together, 3 and one more 4, okay, like that. That's okay. Okay, and what just to split them up some. What I'd like you to do is to take either the 2 outside ones or the 2 inside ones. It's up to you. 2 inside ones, okay, and then these 2 will be the 2 for you, okay. Now, what we're going to do here is we're going to use the numbers of the cards. Forget the suit. And Jack will be 11, Queen will be 12, and King will be 13. Okay, and Ace will be 1. Okay, so whatever your 2 cards are, add the 2 numbers together.
Okay.
That will be the page number.
Okay.
But don't tell me. Just show her so she can open the book to that page. Okay? So yeah, open it to that page. Okay. You got it? Now take these 2 cards and add those 2 numbers together, and that's the line you're going to use. Okay? So you need to count down to that line. You want to help her out? I won't look. I'll turn away so you won't think I'm trying to follow their eyes or anything. Is that fair?
Yeah.
I mean, you could have taken any cards from the deck, mixed them up any way you wanted, or they could have, and chose any page. Tell me when you've got it. The line that you're thinking of, is it a shorter line or a longer line?
Short.
It's a short line? Like only 2 or 3 words? Would you think of what the words are? Was this about as fair as you could possibly want to be? Yes? Angela, are you thinking of the words like a fly? Thank you very much.
Now, this book test is a creation of Annemans himself called The Word on the Page.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about that a little bit.
Okay. Before I get into that, do you notice the colors?
Of the book? You mean
yes,
the jacket?
in the deck. I thought a lot about that when I put this together. Just like with some of the other props we use, like the business with the papers inside.
Oh, the colored slips and the OM box.
Because mentalism doesn't use many props. And if you just restrict everything you use to white paper and black slates and things like that, it's got no color. So a little splash of color right now helps. It makes it look interesting. So
sure.
What Anneman says he discovered in Practical Mental Effects is that in the 14-15 stack deck,
all right, we should talk about that.
which I'll explain first.
Yeah.
The 14-15 deck means you just stack the cards in such a way that any 2 cards together will always total either 14 or 15. Doesn't matter suit-wise, which is what's nice, because as I spread these out, if you look them over, you say, oh, they're all mixed up, because the suits are all mixed up.
Right.
But in fact, the deck is stacked. Every 2 cards add up to either 14 or 15. Let's start here. 6 and 9 is 15. 9 and 5 is 14. 10 and 5 is 15. 10 and 4 is 14. 11 and 4 is 15. 11 and 3 is 14. You see, so it goes through the whole deck. So any 2 cards you pull out together, like over here, have to be either 12 and 3 is 15.
Right.
So it's either 14
And kings
or
are
15.
13, so they're paired with the aces, so
Right.
that makes it 14. Yep.
And I explained this in the routine. If you go back and watch it, you see I clearly explain aces are 1, jacks are 11,
Right.
queens are 12, and kings are 13. Now, Anneman's discovery was if you take out 4 cards in a row, like let's say these 4 cards right here, the 2 middle cards will have to either equal 14 or 15, and the 2 outer cards will have to equal either 15 or 16.
Okay.
That was his discovery. In this case, obviously, it's 16. 2 inner cards are 14, 2 outer cards are 16.
Okay.
So what that means is if you can use this deck of cards to force pages either 14 or 15 in a book, because they'll take two cards and look at two cards together, and it has to be either 14 or 15, which is what we have here.
All right.
And then the two outer cards will have to force either 15 or 16. So what that means, basically, is that we're going to force either page 14 or 15. If it's 15 that's forced, then the other two numbers that could be possible on the outside of these two cards that total 15
All right.
is either 13 or 14.
Okay.
So on page 15, the forced line is going to be either 13 or 14. The two on page 14 will be either line 15 or 16. So basically you have four total possibilities out of this deck.
Okay.
You have the 15th or 16th word lines on page 14 and the 13th or 14th line on page 15. And by the way, when I say line, in the book it actually said to count to the word.
Word, yeah.
I found that to be very confusing, especially like, look at, here's a hyphenated word right here.
Right.
And so how do you count that? But you can't make a mistake counting down a page.
Right, they just go down lines, so.
Exactly. So on page 14, the two possibilities are the lines 15 and 16, which are right here, can get a witness or two to say he was involved in a felony that, and the next line is resulted in homicide, even if he didn't do the killing.
Okay.
Pages or lines 13 and 14 on page 15, this is getting to be a tongue twister, isn't it? Are like a fly is right over, where is it? Right here, like a fly, or
Right.
no, Marcy said, I can't bear to think about it.
Okay.
So those are the possible lines that you're going to get using this forcing deck, which I'll explain in a second. So again, do you commit this to memory or how do you handle it? So what I decided to do, since we're using a forcing deck, I took one of the extra cards that has red and black printing, and I just made a little sticker up with those lines. The two red lines are this side, the two black lines are this side, and stuck it right to the card so it looks like that.
Right.
So
you,
a casual
you put
glance.
a crib on the extra card, but once you remove the jokers and the extra card, it looks perfectly natural to do that.
And in this case, I held them in my hand the whole time. So if we run through that's all that's necessary, by the way, the deck of cards and the book. So this is in the case, and now we'll run through the routine real quick.
Okay.
I talk about the book, I give it to a person, let them look through to make sure it's an ordinary book.
Right.
I take the deck out, and what I do is I take these two cards like this, and I say, okay, here are the extra cards, and I actually like reverse them and set them down here. And I showed the cards to be all different, a false shuffle or two, and then I said, okay, I'll just spread them like this, and someone slide four cards together out.
Just a group of four.
Yeah, a
so
group
they-
of four
they
cards.
take-
So they take like that, okay? And then I just pick these cards up and to get them out of the way. And one person has to get the two middle cards, and the other person has to get the two outer cards. Rather than try to get into a long scenario why that should be or something, I just brush right by saying, which of you two would like to get the two middle cards?
Right,
And you say, you? Okay, take them.
right, and then that
then-
leaves the other two.
Yeah, and you take the other two.
Right.
Now add your two together.
Okay.
And open the page to that book,
Yeah,
whatever. And
so they
then
go through that.
the other person does the same thing. While this is all going on, I casually just pick up the deck and these two cards, hold them in my hand like this.
Right.
Now, if it's here, if I see you looking over here, because all books have even pages on this side and odd pages on this side.
Correct.
All books.
Correct.
Period. If you find a book that has odd numbers on this side, throw it away. It's not a real book. Okay? So
Right.
anyways, whichever side you look on, then I know now I'm down to two possibilities.
Right.
So let's say I see you looking on this side.
Right.
So I'm staring right at my crib, right here
Yep.
in my hand. And so I might say, okay, the first word in that line, is it a shorter word? Yeah,
Well, wait a minute. I've only opened to the page now, so you're.
And the other person has given you.
Okay, so now that, I just didn't want to leave that part out.
Okay,
So-
yeah, the
So now
second-
they would add theirs, and they would get
And tell you
16,
the-
which you wouldn't know.
Right.
So I would count down to that line.
And
Yep.
while you're doing that, I am looking at my crib, so I know it's got to be one or the other of this. And I might say to you, okay, looking at that line, is the first word a real short word?
No.
Okay, I didn't think so. Wait, you know what's throwing me off? It's not really a whole, is that part of another word that was like hyphenated?
Yes.
Okay, because now I understand. The whole word, and you didn't even look at it, but you thought it was resulted. But you're just looking at what? S-U-L-T-E-D?
Correct.
You see, and now I can really elaborate. Well, let's do it a little bit longer. Think of the next word. Well, that's a simple word, in. What's the next word? Just think it in your mind. Oh, wait a minute, that's kind of dark. Is it the word homicide?
Yeah.
And that's where I would end it there.
Okay.
But you play with it, with
Sure,
each line, and
of
you
course.
make it work. And so it's very practical. And when a lot of people, you always hear them criticize, I hate to use dice and cards and everything else to find a page in the book. But you know what? It makes it interesting. And when you get said and done at the end and you're naming the stuff out, all that stuff fades into the past.
Yeah.
And it still becomes a very, very direct book test,
Very effective.
Yeah.
Theodore Animan was one of the most enigmatic characters in the history of magic and mentalism, and also one of its most prolific. He was the creator of The Jinx, one of magic's most notable periodicals, and wrote a number of books on various facets of card magic and mentalism. After his death in 1942, at the age of 35, his best work was compiled in a book entitled Practical Mental Effects, published in 1944. But as celebrated as this book remains, are the effects still effective for modern audiences?
Yeah, just blown away pretty much, and just
I don't know. I'm just amazed. That's all I can say.
when he was guessing the words that we put down on the newspaper, I have no idea how he did that. It was pretty intense.
Wow is the first word that comes to mind. I thought Richard was amazing.
I picked a line in the newspaper and suddenly he could read the words I was thinking of, and that was unbelievable.
Welcome to Practical Mental Effects.
Animan's practical mental effects, along with Corinda's 13 steps, are considered to be the foundation of mentalism, but they're quite different from each other. Corinda was written much later and was meant to be a sort of primer of mentalism, taking each step, each part of mentalism, first nail writers and then prediction effects and that type of thing.
Right.
Whereas practical mental effects came from a much earlier time. Corinda was like the 50s and the 60s, whereas practical mental effects came from the Jinx, which was written between 1934 and 1941. And already within the Jinx, these effects had been used for 20 years or so. So these are effects from the turn of the century, from the early teens and the 20s.
From working repertoires.
Yes, that's the thing. Every one of these effects in this book were from magicians and mentalists who were doing this stuff for real. That's why this stuff is so important. And unlike Corinda, which was he set out to create steps in the study of mentalism, that was not the case here with practical mental effects. This compilation of mental effects from the Jinx didn't happen until 3 years after Animan passed away.
Okay.
And when they put them together in practical mental effects, they tried to organize them, card effects, living and dead tests, but that was never the intent in the first place.
Right.
The intent was a magazine filled with different effects contributed by Animan and others. And so when we decided to do this, we talked in great length about this. We said, we're going to take it chapter by chapter like we did with 13 steps. Doesn't make any sense.
Right.
All we're going to do is wind up having to do 12 living and dead tests in a row, or 12 card effects in a row.
Yeah.
And even in the introduction, he mentions, Crimmins mentions that, he tries his best to put these together in some orderly fashion, but even there, you can't really do that because some effects have cards that aren't card effects or part of prediction effects and what have you. So we just chose to pick a montage of effects from different parts of the book, and we're going to disperse these over the course of some 6 DVDs.
Yes.
And we decided to do it in two two efforts. This first set that you're about to look at will consist of the first 3 DVDs, and then we'll move on to the second set in a very short order. I also tried to take effects for this first series that are quite easy to make up and do. There's hardly anything in here you have to go out and buy.
Right.
Everything you can put together at home, and I want it to truly be practical for anyone who wants to